It's so nice to have everybody here. I am excited to talk about this topic. It's one of my favorites. And hopefully everybody can see my presentation. Nilay, does it look good? Can you see it?
Yep, looks perfect.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So I'll do a little intro about myself, and then I'll go into some of the content, and then we'll do Q&A, like Nilay said. So my name is Meredith. I am a leadership coach, and I also do interview coaching and job search coaching. And I'm really focused on helping people advocate for what they want in their careers. And that can be a job, a promotion, more influence, like what we're going to talk about today. And I work with clients across their career life cycle. I mentioned this earlier, but I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, which a lot of people are feeling right now in the middle of the pandemic. They're having a reflection on their careers, to, like I said, the job search piece. And then once they're onboarded, I work with clients as well. So I have been a full-time coach for about 1.5 years. And previous to that, I worked at Meta for almost 8 years in a variety of roles that were in sort of product marketing and program developments, and led teams there and interviewed a lot of people. So I come in with some of that experience of working at a FANG or Ming, I guess, I don't know if we're calling it Ming right now, Ming company into my coaching. So I'll get started on the content, but today is really about how can you broaden your reach of influence in wherever you are in your company, but still remain true to yourself. And I think this is one of those things that a lot of people struggle with. You know, they see the example of somebody who has kind of this firm leadership style, and they think that that's how you build influence in your career, and they don't know quite how to be themselves and sort of grow and become a leader. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and tease a couple of things because I'm also building a program around this, and that will be available starting today on Carrus. So the workshop goals are really a 101. What is authentic influence? This feels mysterious. What's involved in it? That sort of thing. Then we'll talk about the first step of authentic influence, which is, who are you? What's your unique voice in the world? You know, how can you step into that voice too in the workplace? And then finally, we'll talk about what are the gaps. So you want to step into influence, you maybe know yourself a little bit better, and there's some things that are holding you back from stepping into that. We'll discuss kind of how you can build a personal development plan to allow you to take some actions after this webinar. Okay, so authentic influence. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but a lot of people, when they hear influence, they start to cringe, because they think of it as manipulative or power over people. And maybe they want to remain humble, or they are kind of more on the humble side, and they get sort of, I don't know, they're not attracted to this idea of what influence is often portrayed as. But at the end of the day, influence is key to the world around us, in particular in the workplace now, where there's a lot of cross-functional elements, and there's a ton of, getting people on board through non-direct, management. You're influencing without authority. This is a phrase that a lot of the companies use these days. And so I'm going to try to make influence feel less irky or kind of smarmy to the audience here, and talk about how you can step into it and feel good about it. So what is it? There's a couple of key characteristics of authentic influence. It's really, at the end of the day, it's the opposite of forced authority, like I've been alluding to. But the first step is in self-awareness. And somebody who would be considered to have authentic influence would have a significant amount of self-awareness. When you see these people, right? They come into a room and they're secure with who they are, their quirks, kind of what they're uniquely good at. They understand their belief systems, their values, their purpose. And this is such a crucial crux of authentic influence. And it's one that maybe we have a little bit more of an ability to control, or at least take immediate action on, because it really just involves self. I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard to go deep into who we are and what we want, but it is something that you can take action on today. The second piece is probably one of the ones that's most challenging for my clients, and that's direct communication. Direct, I'm going to separate these two things. By direct, I don't mean, again, that forced authority, do this. What I mean is really clarity. It's, you're leading a project and you've identified that you have certain needs that you need folks to help you with. And you explicitly state those needs and you ask for help. You're not trying to indirectly kind of get at the help that you need. You are clear with what your expectations are. And I'm sure you've worked under leaders or worked with others that are on this more indirect path and felt frustrated because you didn't know what the expectations were and maybe you weren't delivering them. And so a really good leader is able to set those expectations, able to share what they're concerned about, maybe even some directness about, vulnerability, about things that they are personally feeling scared of for themselves. But certainly being more clear and ideally, when you're asking for something, you are doing it in a way that there's not going to be sort of misinterpretation. So that's the second characteristic. The third is an alignment of words and actions. And this is really around consistency, accountability, integrity. It's more or less an integrated self. Who you are, that self-awareness is showing up in your actions and your words. It's all integrated together. And this is also something that you can take action today on. It's something that you can step into by just being conscious of the fact that you are saying you're going to do something, you're signing up for it. And did you meet that promise? And you can think of good leaders who have showed this, and you've probably built trust in those leaders as a result. The third is interconnectedness. This one's maybe the most kind of hippie element. So bear with me here, but the idea here is that we're all better together. We all need each other to succeed. It's not me against you, it's us. And this piece is so crucial towards motivating teams, towards getting people to want to work on the things that you're working on. I mean, you can definitely think of a leader who did this probably in your past, and imagine how you just felt so compelled, inspired. And so if you're able to operate with this mindset, it can really shift kind of everything around you. And then also this notion of empathy is crucial towards this. It's the acknowledgement that people on your team, they have needs, they have feelings, and you're connecting into what those are when you're leading a project. If you're trying to get support on a particular task, you're acknowledging that person might be overloaded right now. And how can you scale back that task so you're still getting your needs met, but also you're connecting into what they need. And then gratitude is probably pretty self-evident, but it feels good when somebody acknowledges that you've made their life a little bit more wonderful. I certainly want to work for a leader that does that recognizes me. And so, no matter what level you're in, you still have the power to share your gratitude and recognize others. And we'll talk a little bit about maybe even tactics that you can build this into on a regular basis for yourself. So key detractors. This is another one that is a little bit challenging to look at, because we'll see ourselves in it at times, and we all have elements of this. Goals are self-serving. Nobody wants to admit this, but we are, inherently people who do want to succeed and, have fruitful lives. And so at times when we ask for things or whatnot, it might be more on, what our needs are about. But again, that empathy piece becomes really crucial. And if your needs are, or if your goals are fully self-serving, it's really hard to influence people. People don't want to follow someone that they believe has only their interests in mind. So this is a key detractor. Second detractor is seeing authenticity as fixed, quote unquote. So I mentioned self-awareness is key, but I didn't mean that you stay stuck in who you are. And we are always growing, hopefully, we're always evolving. And so a big piece of authenticity and being authentic in your influencing is acknowledging when truths change and adapting your kind of style and how you operate in the world based on that change. I can't tell you how powerful it can be if you're a leader to say, you changed my mind. I'm going to operate differently now. But if you stay stuck in this idea that it's fixed, and you say, this is how we're going to do it because this is what I want, or this is who I am, you really, you make it hard to get people on your team. The third one is unable to acknowledge mistakes. And this is really related to this notion of fixedness. It's probably pretty self-evident, but a part of authenticity is vulnerability and an awareness that we aren't perfect. And my goodness, it can be so refreshing when somebody says, I wished I had done that differently. And this is how I'd go after it if I could go back. It has that growth mindset. It shows that, we all make mistakes. And it certainly creates an environment where people are willing to take risks and lean into innovation. The last one is social self-doubt. This one is around you maybe struggling with feeling confident in the connections that you have at work. So perhaps you find yourself kind of ruminating on meetings that you had a presentation, you have a lot of self-doubt around how you showed up to other people. And if you're stuck in this space of yourself and social self-doubt, it makes it a lot harder to connect in with others because you're kind of always in your own head. And that is felt by your colleagues for sure. And it definitely causes it to be very challenging to have influence. All right, so we're going to focus mostly today on the first bullet that is a component of authentic influence, and that's self-awareness. But I will allude to some of the other ones as well later on. So first things first, as you're going into self-awareness, by the way, maybe you're somebody who just excels in self-awareness. You know yourself so well, and kudos to you. I don't think most of us feel that way. So I do feel like there's often a gap to better understanding yourself. And I want to invite you to step into this space of doing this work. And I'll give you some ideas, but I also work with clients in this space quite a bit, in particular when they're not sure what they want to do next. A big piece of what I'll encourage is to kind of acknowledge and understand themselves. So this is a stage of gathering data. What matters to you? When you are in a meeting or working on a project, what are you willing to fight for? What do you believe in that's so powerful that you're willing to take risks for it? And so this is just a list of values. There's tons of lists out there, but perhaps your focus is on community. And that's the number one thing that matters to you in a workplace. You want to cultivate community. Well, then that becomes a lot easier to make decisions. If you're trading off between community and something else, maybe you would lean at least a little bit more towards community if something else is necessary to doing your job, or you fully lean into community. So this is a crucial step. I also work a lot with clients on kind of what their life purpose is, which is related to values. And that can be a really powerful exercise too, to have kind of a North Star statement, your mission statement for your life, on where you want to head, so that you can anchor all of your decisions authentically into that life purpose. Next is, what do you enjoy? We often think of ourselves as and in the workplace as kind of just workers. But if you can bring your whole self into work, obviously to a point where it's safe, sometimes we don't want to be fully open always. But if you can share, what your interests are, what your hobbies are, that can also be a really great space of connecting in with others. And I also think this is really valuable for interviews. I have had clients who open up about something that's personal in their "tell me about you," or that initial question that a lot of interviewers ask. And the interviewer potentially is also interested in that. And that just creates sort of this sense of, where it was tense, it lightens the mood. So this is another space that you can bring into interviews. Another step of gathering data is, who do you admire? This can be related to values for sure, but it allows you to start to understand the kind of characteristics and qualities that you yourself perhaps hold, but you haven't been fully kind of stepping into, or maybe it's a gap area that you want to grow into in general. And it can be a really great source of data. And then another space is just reflection on a few questions. So what are the types of challenges and projects that people come to you for? What are you known for? I remember when I was at Meta, one of the things that people would think of me about is just getting stuff done. A hard project or a challenging initiative. That was sort of the reputation I had. So what is that for you? What's your reputation? And then if you hadn't worked on a project, so this is kind of, think back to something you did recently. If you hadn't been there, what would have been missing? What are the qualities that you brought that were unique? And just generally, what are your unique contributions at work? So these can be good questions for you to step back and reflect and start to put together this puzzle that is you. And so this is kind of related to the first question in the last slide, but look back at your feedback from your latest performance reviews. What are people saying about you? What are the themes? You can also find some trusted advisors to help you here, a loving critic, somebody that is looking out for you, to ask them very candidly, what do you observe in me? What are the qualities that I bring? What are the challenges that I might have? Step into this because it can be really, really helpful. So we went through gathering the data. Let's talk about putting together. So it might feel vain to think about, what are my sources of power or my strengths, but this is such a crucial step. And it is also very important because you don't want to fully lean into what that gap is between, where you are and where you want to be. You also want to really amplify what you have sort of innately. So look at this list as just a list that is compiled around strengths, and take a look at it, see if there's any that really stand out to you. Do you find that I mentioned sort of action? For me, that's a strength. I can take action on difficult concepts. Where are you? Are you more of a problem solver, or you have grit? Like, what are the things that you could own as strengths? And then I love this one. I bring this into my interview coaching a lot. What's your wisdom? What are things that your philosophies, your truths, learnings that you've had? What would you share with somebody who's newly reporting to you, or your niece or your child, around what you see as kind of evident or true in the workplace? And then we don't have enough time to do this, but this is around that vision statement. you can start to compile all of these learnings into a vision, and that becomes your North Star. I'm going to scroll through this fast because I want to get to the next step, which is you are learning about yourself and you want to move into authentic influence, but you don't know how to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is a Venn diagram, and the idea behind this is you have your strengths, which we've already discussed, the what makes you unique. And then you have maybe where you want to head. You know, when you think about influence, what is that in service of? What are you hoping to get to? And that's maybe the company or the role needs or the career needs, and that's on the right-hand side. And we want to find what the overlap is between those things, because that's something you can step into right away. But there's also this ability to make that center bigger and to have more and more and more overlap. So we're going to discuss how you can start to build that more and more overlap. We talked about the key characteristics. So I just wanted to show this again because my recommendation is that you take these characteristics and then you start to build out a growth plan. So with self-awareness, you can use some of the exercises we reviewed today. That can be a growth plan idea that you have, and you can set goals around that, you know, doing those exercises over the next week, putting together that vision statement. And then in terms of direct communication, you can identify one thing that feels safe enough. It's not so scary. It's not 10 out of 10. Maybe it's 1 out of 10 that you can do that involves direct communication. And then once you get comfortable with the 1, you can move to a 2 and then so on. And then ideally over time, you expose yourself to it so much that it's easy, it's second nature, and you can step into that space of clarity and setting you know, very easy to understand goals with folks on your team. So for this one, I just used a sample, but before having a difficult conversation, you step back and identify the specific, clear request that you have of another person. So could you sign up for this? Could you sign up for another thing? What's a gap for you? Aligning actions and words. So this one, you could identify someone to practice setting a boundary with. Again, a 1 out of 10 scale of fear, but who could that person be? Somebody that you trust at work. It could be somebody that you trust at home. You're just starting to get more comfortable with that. So boundaries allow you to say no when you're unable to do something, which again aligns your actions to words. You're saying, I can't do this. And therefore you are saying you can do something that you can deliver on, right? Boundaries allow you to actually succeed in a lot of ways. And then empathy and gratitude. Perhaps you could share positive feedback with a colleague once a week. You know, that's a goal for you. You can set that as a goal. So on the detractor side, we went through this. You can also have a growth plan. So for self-focus, this is a really good one. When somebody else is speaking in a meeting, pretend that you're typing everything they're saying. It actually helps you to really stay with that person. So you're fully with them. You're not thinking about what's next. See authenticity as fixed. At the end of the month, reflect on the question, how have I changed? How have I grown? What's different about me now? Unable to acknowledge mistakes. A great exercise here would be to run a retrospective after a project. You know, make this a part of how you run projects, or even a self-retrospective where you're looking at things that went well and opportunity areas for future projects. For social self-doubt, you know, maybe instead of ruminating, you write down 3 things that you're proud of about yourself after a presentation or a contribution in a meeting. So you're starting to build kind of your self-confidence around how you show up with other people. All right, so quickly, I'm going to go through the benefits. I found that this kind of work can really serve clients that I work with who are in the interview stages. It helps them kind of reacquaint themselves with their strengths, with the things that they feel that they can deliver to interviewers and feel really confident around. So interviewing, advocating for what you want in your career, asking for a promotion, saying you want to have a larger scope. It helps reduce communication gaps, of course, and gain buy-in and alignment. And it helps you feel connected and energized. I think this is a space a lot of people feel drained by work and by doing cross-functional work. If you're stepping into kind of authentic influence, there's that ease. Like I said, that person that walks in the room and just seems like they can be themselves, like it's not a big deal for them. So I wanted to share that I am launching a program that is focused and dedicated to this particular topic. And it's a full program. It'll have cohorts where you'll work with other people to talk about some of your growth areas, get feedback, and also have one-on-one coaching with me. And then I also have workbooks and educational videos that'll be a part of it, doing things like communication 101 and how to be direct, or just how to manage people. There'll be some sort of educational content as well. And so I am offering this as a package today. So that is it. Thank you so much for coming. And I know we are past time by a minute, but if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith. It was really an enlightening and very crisp session. I really loved it. Yeah. So we have our first, yep. So any questions? So Irina says, great session. Thanks.
Thank you, Irina, for coming.
Yeah. So yes, this meeting, the recording would be available to you in next 24 to 48 hours directly in your mailbox. We will also be uploading it on YouTube. We'll process the video and you will get a direct link to the video.
Wonderful.
Okay, Irina has a question. Can you touch base on that North Star statement again? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I didn't go through the full exercise, so it makes sense that you didn't catch it, Irina. But the idea behind it is, what's your life purpose, basically? And that sounds really overwhelming, and I understand that. So part of what you can do is that upfront work that I mentioned, where you're understanding your values, your strengths, these sorts of things can help serve. They can be sort of a bottoms up for that life statement. But at the end of the day, this is something that if you were to look back at your life and say, I worked towards this, that you'd feel proud of yourself. You'd feel like you had, had meaning in your life. So things like, for example, for me, I have a statement that's around helping people see their shared humanity. So that's a space of kind of what I think about when I'm taking action day to day. So what is yours, right? When you, how you operate in the world, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Great.
So it definitely answers her question. She says, sounds good. Looking forward to learning more. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Irina. Yeah. Any more questions? Divya, John, Kimberly, Larry. Okay. Okay, Larry asked a question. I'm not sure if this is related to influence, but any tips for overcoming friction between team members or between different product teams?
Yeah. This could probably take hours, Larry, but I think that the direct communication one is probably my biggest recommendation. And again, direct communication does not mean, you're coming off as telling them what to do. It is around that clarity. So understanding what is happening for each of these team members, and that's the empathy too, kind of cluing into what their needs are, and then being clear with what the expectations are and how they can work together. What are the steps that they can take? That is crucial to any sort of quote unquote conflict or challenges between team members.
Perfect. Does that answer your question, Larry? Okay, Divya asked a question. I'm not sure, like Divya, if you can elaborate it a little. She asked how many weeks these sessions.
I think, Divya, do you mean how many weeks is the program? Perhaps? If so, okay, great.
Yes.
Confirmed, yes. Yeah, so it'll be over the course of 6 months. So it'll be kind of stretched out. And part of that is going to be, it's more upfront work in terms of the coaching and some of the cohort sessions. But part of the reason why it is longer is you'll be able to kind of check in later on, how are things going? And you'll have the support of both me and the cohort.
Perfect. I hope, Divya, this answers the question. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll be posting that package on my profile just after this session.
Sure. I will personally mail you all the recording of the session and also link to the Meredith's updated package. And yep, then you can explore more what she's talking about. Any more questions? Kimberly Johns, any questions from your side? Okay, yeah. So I think we are done here, Meredith.
Wonderful.
Thank you for this amazing session. It was really enlightening. And thank you everyone, for attending this. Meredith, any closing statements?
I think if you're in this particular webinar or listening to it, you're already taking a step towards the space of authentic influence. So kudos to you. And I hope that some of these exercises help you take further steps.
Perfect. Lovely. Okay, then with that, we'll take our adieu. Good. What a good
Thank you,
afternoon to
everybody.
you all. And good night for me.
Sweet dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye. Take care.
Bye, Meredith. See you soon.